So this reset then, how far could it actually go?
I would say three things about Starmer's visit to Berlin and Paris. I think, first of all, it shows us that there is a clear focus in this new government on building improved, warm and personal relationship with Europeans. And they clearly see European countries as important partners and allies. And that is a shift in it of itself. And Germany is clearly a key partnership for the UK in this, and there seems to be appetite on both sides to do more together on security and defence, but also other areas, and that would be in the bilateral sphere. And those bilateral visits are an important part of the wider European reset that Kier Starmer spoke about in the clip you just played. But at the end of the day, the proper negotiations will happen later, and they will happen in Brussels, where the responsibility for the UK-EU relationship particularly when it comes to trade lie, and that is going to be far from easy, I think.
Yeah, Jannike, talk us through the differences, aren't there? Because there are some things which can be negotiated with member states, country to country, and there are other issues that need to be negotiated centrally. Can you tell us about the differences?
Yeah, you're completely right. So when it comes to the trading relationship with the European Union, the competence for that lie with the European Union in Brussels. So you will remember we negotiated the Trade and Cooperation Agreement with Brussels in 2020, and that governs the way we trade with the EU right now. And what Kier Starmer has set out is a limited number of trade easements he wants to achieve with the European Union. And that includes, for example, a veterinary agreement to make it easier to export agri-food products to the EU. He wants to negotiate something on the mutual recognition of professional qualifications to make it easier for service providers to move into the EU for jobs, and he wants to help touring artists. He also wants to negotiate something on a security pact. So when it comes to security and defence, the responsibilities mainly lie with member states rather than the EU level, but he wants to explicitly have a more institutional relationship with the European Union itself here. But I think there it's going to be a bit of mixed competences between member states and the EU, and that's clearly an area where there's appetite on both sides when it comes to security and defence.
I was going to ask you about the appetite, because this sounds like a relatively long shopping list there from Kier Starmer. This requires the other party, and in most cases we're talking about there, Jannike, we're talking about the EU willing to come to the table, willing to renegotiate in some circumstances. How likely is that?
Yeah, I think you're completely right. One of the biggest challenges for Kier Starmer is to incentivize the European Union to come to the negotiating table, particularly when it comes to trade, because the reality is that the EU is quite satisfied with the way the Trade and Cooperation Agreement works and the current trading relationship. So I think there it will be difficult, and the UK will have to think carefully about what it is able to offer in return. And we know, for example, that the European Union is interested in a youth mobility scheme. The European Commission, as you may remember, put forward a proposal for a youth mobility scheme, or for a negotiation on a youth mobility scheme earlier this year, which included some quite ambitious proposals for young people between the age of 18 and 30 to be able to come, live, study and work in the UK for up to 4 years. And that's a clear demand that the EU has put forward. So this will certainly form part of a negotiation, and will be an important ask from the European Union.